It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you two representatives from Hook Norton Low Carbon, which is a local enterprise that has galvanised a community together in the village of Hook Norton to consider ways of lowering the carbon footprint within the village, both as a community and as individuals. So a very warm welcome to Keith and Jessica D'Souza. So perhaps, Keith, you could perhaps describe, first of all, how this initiative kick-started.
Sure. Well, firstly, your introduction was really good description of what we do. So it started in 2008, and it was really a group of people who had those exact thoughts in their head about promoting low carbon activities, about encouraging people and assisting people to either reduce the carbon footprint of their home or helping in many other ways. And we focus on the individuals within our community, within the village, but also the community as a whole. In 2010, we were allowed to get some funding. We got some government funding, which means that we could then purchase some low carbon assets and actually feed those things back to the community. So we have a car club in the village where we run 4 cars that are green cars. We've got 2 EVs, and we've got a couple of cars that run biodiesel. And anyone within the community can sign up, and they can use the cars really to help promote people not having a second car or just using cars less, and using greener cars, because our cars are some of the greenest around. We have e-bikes. We have 6 e-bikes in the village, which is quite good for a small village. And that, again, is to promote people not using cars, but also it's a leisure activity, and they get a lot of use. And living in Hook Norton, we have some big hills, so people do very much appreciate having electric bikes, especially as we're promoting people at the moment to get more exercise. It's been really good. But we do have people actually using them instead of car journeys for practical uses, which is great to see. We have the loans, which people can use to improve the energy efficiency of their own homes. That's been really good. That can be anything from PV or solar panels, air source heat pumps, up to cavity wall installations, things like that. And then lastly, we have the Community Land Trust, which is a fantastic initiative where we have worked with Cherwell District Council to actually, they've actually given us, or they will give us some land to build some affordable low carbon houses that will be fit for the 2050 climate target.
Some very, very wonderful initiatives that have developed and are continuing to do so into the future. That's fantastic. Jessica, moving to you, which do you feel has been the most particular initiative that has been successful to date, and perhaps one that has been innovative and most exciting for Hook Norton?
Well, good question, and good timing for that question as well, because we have just finished working with Hook Norton Brewery, and with them we produced quite possibly the lowest carbon cask ale. And it was a really interesting, somebody earlier used the word process. That's a really good way to summarize it. It was a really interesting process. So initially we just thought, oh, we can pick local hops and we can collect those by e-bike and EV cars. But then when we thought about the whole process in making beer, we realized how many other elements can be looked at to help lower that carbon footprint. So we also used a local malted barley, and it was unroasted, so there was no heat energy in there. The hops were put in fresh, so they weren't dried, or no heat was used to dry them. They were also wild, so there was no process or extra energy used. They literally were growing on the side of the road near the Perch in Oxford. And then the beer was brewed in a small batch, which meant less energy in the heating process, but it was also done at a time of day where the tank was already warm from a previous brew, so we kind of utilise that energy anyway. And then it was unfined, so most people, like a lot of our friends, don't realise that there is animal product used in the fining process of quite a lot of beers. So we requested this one to be unfined, so it made it a vegan beer, which again lowered the carbon footprint. And then post the beer production, we had a very exciting day on Clean Air Day last Thursday of delivering in refillable containers to the local community who responded to our social interactions. So buy e-bike and vintage bike. So a great, without using a pun, upcycling use there. 1952, we went around the village, collected their containers, went to the brewery, refilled them, tasted the beer, and then went around and delivered the refillable containers back to the community. And it's not quite over. There are a few more initiatives. I think one of them is going to be delivering a keg by wheelbarrow from the brewery to the nearest pub. And there's potentially some deliveries by EV as well. And just to point out the very nature of cask ale, it's quite a low carbon alcoholic drink anyway, because it's a fresh substance, and by nature it goes off fairly quickly, so it tends to get delivered to a smaller area, and it is a circular system, because the casks or kegs come back to the brewery and get refilled, used for other beers. But we have managed to hopefully lower that even more. So I found a stat that it was 300 grams carbon dioxide equivalent in an average cask ale pint, and that's opposed to 3 times the amount, 900, in an imported bottled beer on a supermarket shelf. So I would like to talk with the brewery to see if we can work out how much we've sliced of that 300. So I'll get back to you on that.
That would be great.
And what I like about that project, why it's the most innovative is because it used the car club electric cars, it used the e-bikes from the car club, and it incorporated the community. I missed out one that the community were called and they helped us hand pick the hops from the hop vine as well. So it really got everyone involved, and those lessons, including me, and looking at that process. And that process can be applied to so much in life, I realise. So instead of buying, going to a supermarket and buying your normal product, see if there are alternatives. And I have to say, we are fans of Nothing But Footprints. Wherever we can, I will resist, if we run out of sugar, I will resist going to the local shop and buying it in a plastic packet. I will wait until we can get our trip to Nothing But Footprints. And we have personally noticed our home reduction going down. And we, through Hook Norton Low Carbon, promote local businesses like Nothing But Footprints to our members and followers.
That's brilliant, and that's wonderful initiative, particularly the beer. We're looking forward to that, and I'm surprised that you don't have a glass in front of you right now, and it sounds like that if you did, you have to drink it pretty quickly as well before it goes off. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the next question, which is it's been really interesting with regard to a particular initiative that relates to the solar panel installation on the Banbury plant tire roofing and the Sports and Social Club, and monitoring the live stats across the website. How has that initiative come about to install the panels on those particular buildings? And in terms of monitoring the stats, have they actually helped to feed back into the community to change behaviour?
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, they're two of our bigger projects, definitely. Rather than targeting an individual, we're targeting either a local community resource or a business. And if you think about business or someone like that, they generally need a lot of energy. They generally got a big premise, and they also probably want to save some money. There is a little bit of that as well. So both these particular examples had large roofs, so we could put big PV installations on them. They both got double wins really, because the one at the Sports and Social, the electric that's generated from that is huge. I mean, it will run a number of houses probably off that PV installation. It's basically a mini power station. And we actually run one of our electric cars off it, which is great. So when you're driving around in that car, it's solar energy that has powered that car, which is brilliant. And eventually that electricity will be used to run the homes that are going to be on the community land trust site that we mentioned earlier. And then the Banbury site is also a double win, because they're a skip hire place, but they recycle 100% of the material that comes in from their skips. And that's a huge job. And the way they do it is through, well, there's a lot of manual labor, but they have a huge machine that looks like a double-decker bus that sorts all these things. And the power that needs to do that is immense, but that power is being provided by the PV panels on their roof. So the stats really, well, I think anyway, that the stats really just provide a little bit of information to other businesses or other communities, and to show you what can be done. If you've got a big roof and you've got the space, if you can work together, and it is a collaboration, it's not just us, it's collaborating with the different businesses in order to do this, and the solar panel companies, etc., etc. You can really make a huge difference. And we've got essentially 2 power stations kind of sitting in the village, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. Very good. Yeah. So in terms of the success for the, across the last 10 years with the initiatives, whether it's the beer, the electric cars, the e-bikes, and the solar panels, what's next for Hook Norton Low Carbon?
So there is a lot to build on the initiatives that we have. So we want to get more members. We want to keep educating existing members of the community. And for instance, a really good example of showing what Hook Norton Low Carbon can do and in introducing the community to those initiatives. Last year, we had a veggie lunch. It was really well advertised, but it was really well received. So it was just mentioned earlier that switching to a plant-based diet is one of the most selfless and most impactful things that we can do as humans. And so just getting that across to people, at least experiencing what foods are possible that don't contain meat. And it was so well attended. So everybody was asked to bring along a vegetarian dish. And then we have some very good chefs in the village, professional chefs. So we had a couple of professional chefs actually cooking and showing how to make vegetarian dishes. And then in the school hall, it was a banquet of vegetarian dishes, and people all helped themselves. And it's hard to think of now in Corona times, but I'm really hoping we can get back to that and have it as a yearly event and have it more and more well attended. And obviously there were people there that weren't vegetarian, but it opened the doors to thinking about it. And we'd like to think that more people eat less meat as a result. But for the future, I don't want this to be a negative story, but I think it's a time capsule here. So 10 years ago, the idea of wind turbines was brought up to the community. And that was 10 years ago. Then it wasn't very well received. It was objected to for visual reasons. But I now think 10 years later, it is something that we have talked about as a committee to bring back up to the forefront, because there is so much more knowledge about how important it is to switch to renewable energy. And I think people are just more used to seeing in other areas in the country wind turbines. I find them very graceful, I find them beautiful, and hopefully people are more used to the idea. So watch this space really, and see if we can get that up and running as an initiative, because we're kind of on a high point and surrounded by a valley, so it would be a really good energy generator.
With the southwesterly winds, definitely.